Taiwan Strait, narrowest point, 6:34 a.m. Early morning light, perfect satellite visibility. 7 Taiwanese cargo ships in single file carrying critical supplies to Taiwan. Medical equipment, fuel, electronics, civilian vessels, unarmed following international shipping lane. Then suddenly, 15 Chinese planned warships emerged from the fog. Type 052D destroyers, Type 054A frigates, corvettes forming a wall across the strait. Radio transmission in Mandarin and English. Taiwanese vessels, you are entering restricted waters. Stop engines immediately. Prepare for boarding. Beijing's message was clear. This convoy doesn't pass. This strait is closed. Taiwan is isolated. China believed they had created the perfect blockade scenario. 7 unarmed cargo ships surrounded by 15 warships, trapped in international waters, no escape, no resistance possible. Their plan: board the vessels, inspect cargo, delay indefinitely, demonstrate control, send message to Taipei and Washington, we control access to Taiwan. But China made 3 catastrophic miscalculations. First, those cargo ships had been transmitting their position to Allied forces for 6 hours. Second, USS America Amphibious Assault Group was 31 miles away, with 6 F-35B stealth fighters airborne. Third, Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force destroyer Atago was already moving into position. And beneath the surface, USS Connecticut attack submarine had been tracking every Chinese vessel since they left port. When China initiated their blockade, they thought they were isolating 7 cargo ships. Instead, they triggered the largest coordinated Allied naval response in the Western Pacific since the 1996 Taiwan Strait crisis. What happened in the next 47 minutes redefined deterrence, challenged gray zone warfare doctrine, and proved that international waters remain international. This is that story. The Taiwan Strait, 110 miles wide at its narrowest point, one of the most strategic waterways on Earth. Half of the world's container ships pass through here annually. $5 trillion in trade, Taiwan's economic lifeline. For decades, China has claimed increasing authority over these waters, pressuring vessels, harassing aircraft, creating expanding zones of control. But until March 15th, they'd never attempted a full peacetime blockade. That morning changed everything. 72 hours earlier, tensions escalated. Chinese military exercises intensified near Taiwan's coast. PLA aircraft conducting record incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. 40 aircraft one day, 50 the next, then 68. Bombers, fighters, electronic warfare aircraft. Beijing's messaging grew aggressive. State media broadcasting reunification timelines. Military officials discussing non-peaceful means. The pressure campaign was deliberate, calculated, designed to isolate Taiwan psychologically before isolating it physically. On March 12th, Taiwan announced a humanitarian supply convoy. 7 civilian cargo ships would carry medical supplies, fuel reserves, and electronic components to Taiwan. Essential supplies for hospitals and infrastructure. The ships would depart Kaohsiung Port on March 15th, travel through international shipping lanes following routes used for decades. Legal under international maritime law, routine under normal circumstances, but Beijing saw opportunity. At 11 p.m. on March 14th, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command detected unusual activity. Chinese Eastern Theater Command mobilizing significant assets. 15 warships from 3 ports, Shanghai, Ningbo, Xiamen, all receiving coordinated movement orders. Type 052D destroyers, Type 054A frigates, Type 056 corvettes. This wasn't routine patrol. The coordination indicated planned operation. At 1:30 a.m. on March 15th, satellite imagery confirmed Chinese vessels converging on the Taiwan Strait, specifically on international shipping lanes the Taiwanese convoy would use. At 3 a.m., Indo-Pacific Command issued alert to 7th Fleet. At 3:45 a.m., USS America, operating 80 miles east of Taiwan, received orders: move to support distance, maintain readiness. At 4 a.m., Japanese Ministry of Defense was briefed. 2 Maritime Self-Defense Force destroyers, JS Atago and JS Ashigara, were repositioned closer to the strait. At 4:30 a.m., Taiwan's National Security Council held emergency session. The convoy was scheduled to depart in 30 minutes. Intelligence showed Chinese warships taking blocking positions. Taiwan's president made the decision. We proceed. We follow international law. We trust our friends will support freedom of navigation. At 5 a.m., 7 cargo ships departed Kaohsiung Port: Formosa Progress, Island Guardian, Pacific Unity, Eastern Star, Jade Prosperity, Freedom Venture, and Democratic Hope. Civilian vessels, crews ranging from 18 to 24 members, unarmed except for fire hoses for anti-piracy. Each ship transmitted position openly on automatic identification system, broadcasting peaceful commercial nature. They formed single-file convoy, maintaining 1-kilometer spacing, proceeding at 12 knots. At 5:15 a.m., USS America launched 6 F-35B Lightning II stealth fighters, vertical takeoff in darkness, establishing combat air patrol 40 miles from projected Chinese intercept point. Close enough to respond in minutes, far enough to avoid provocation. The F-35Bs carried full air-to-air loadout, remained electronically silent, invisible to Chinese sensors. At 5:30 a.m., 2 more F-35Bs launched. At 5:45 a.m., USS Connecticut, Virginia-class attack submarine, was already in position 400 feet below surface. The submarine had been tracking Chinese naval movements for 6 hours, using passive sonar, recording acoustic signatures, building targeting solutions, remaining undetected. Commander Sarah Martinez transmitted encrypted message to 7th Fleet. Have 15 planned vessels tracked and targeted, maintaining surveillance. At 6 a.m., the Chinese blockade force completed positioning. 15 warships formed semicircular barrier across 3 international shipping lanes. Type 052D destroyers, Kunming and Changsha anchored center, their radars tracking all contacts. 4 Type 054A frigates spread across flanks. 6 Type 056 corvettes filled gaps. The formation was textbook, overlapping fields of fire, mutual support, no gaps. Beijing's Eastern Theater Command watched via satellite from headquarters in Nanjing. At 6:28 a.m., Chinese destroyer Kunming detected the Taiwanese convoy on radar. Distance, 12 nautical miles. Chinese commander transmitted to headquarters, contact established, preparing blockade protocol. Response was immediate. Proceed with interdiction. Board vessels for inspection. Demonstrate Chinese authority. At 6:34 a.m., the blockade began. 15 Chinese warships activated navigation lights simultaneously, revealing positions. Chinese radio transmission broadcast on international frequency. Taiwanese vessels, this is People's Liberation Army Navy. You are approaching restricted waters under Chinese jurisdiction. Stop all engines. Prepare for boarding. Resistance will be met with force. Captain Chen Wei-ming aboard Formosa Progress responded, Chinese vessels. This is Taiwanese civilian convoy in international waters following established shipping lane. We are exercising freedom of navigation under international maritime law. Request you clear the lane. The Chinese response was cold. There is no international water here. These are Chinese territorial seas. Stop engines now, or we will board by force. Final warning. At 6:36 a.m., 4 Chinese corvettes broke formation, accelerating toward the convoy. Boarding teams visible, armed sailors preparing boats. They closed to 2,000 meters. Captain Chen transmitted emergency broadcast. Mayday, Mayday, Taiwanese civilian convoy. Position 24 degrees 14 minutes north, 119 degrees 22 minutes east. Being unlawfully intercepted by Chinese military in international waters. 15 planned warships attempting forced boarding. Request immediate assistance. At 6:38 a.m., Captain James Richardson, commanding USS America, made the critical decision. He transmitted to 7th Fleet, Chinese vessels attempting unlawful interdiction, request permission to intervene. Response came in 90 seconds. You are authorized to ensure freedom of navigation, defensive posture, but maintain lawful maritime activities, show presence, demonstrate capability. Captain Richardson ordered, launch all remaining F-35s, broadcast our position, move strike group to visible range. I want Beijing to understand we're here. At 6:40 a.m., 4 more F-35Bs launched, now 12 fifth-generation fighters airborne. USS America's escorts activated powerful SPY-1D radars, emissions detected by every Chinese sensor within 200 miles. At 6:41 a.m., Japanese destroyers received authorization from Tokyo. Proceed to support convoy, exercise freedom of navigation, coordinate with U.S. forces. Both destroyers increased to 28 knots, turning toward Taiwan Strait. Otago activated its advanced radar, impossible to miss. At 6:42 a.m., USS Connecticut surfaced, deliberately, publicly. 15 miles from Chinese blockade line, the 7,800-ton nuclear submarine breached in massive tower of white water, hull emerging in morning light, American flag visible. Surfacing makes submarines vulnerable, but Commander Martinez had orders, demonstrate undersea dominance. Chinese sonar operators had searched for American submarines for 6 hours, found nothing. Now they understood complete failure. Connecticut had been tracking them the entire time, invisible until it chose to reveal itself. Beijing's Eastern Theater Command erupted in urgent traffic. Chinese commander transmitted, American submarine surfaced, American fighters airborne, Japanese destroyers activating radars, situation escalating, request guidance. Response took 4 minutes as senior leadership assessed options. At 6:46 a.m., 12 F-35s established combat air patrol directly above Taiwanese convoy. Flying at 25,000 feet, clearly visible on Chinese radar, the fighters formed protective umbrella. Chinese J-11 fighters scrambled from mainland but were 15 minutes away. F-35s were already positioned. At 6:48 a.m., JS Otago transmitted on international frequency. All vessels in Taiwan Strait, this is Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force. We are exercising freedom of navigation in international waters. We will ensure safe passage for all civilian vessels operating lawfully. Message was professional but clear. Japan was now involved. At 6:49 a.m., Captain Chen made bold decision. Chinese corvettes were 800 meters away, boarding teams ready. He transmitted to convoy. All ships, we will not stop. We proceed on planned course. Maintain formation. We are exercising legal rights. We have support. He ordered helmsman, steady as she goes. Do not alter course. 7 cargo ships continued forward, heading directly toward Chinese blockade line. Chinese corvettes moved to intercept, closing to 400 meters, but faced impossible decision. Ram civilian vessels with Allied warships watching, captured by satellites condemned globally. Open fire on unarmed ships. War. Let convoy pass. Blockade fails. At 6:51 a.m., 2 F-35s descended to 5,000 feet, positioning between Chinese corvettes and Taiwanese convoy. Fighters didn't target weapons, didn't activate fire control radars, just flew steady patterns, blocking approach vectors. Professional, persistent, unmistakable. At 6:53 a.m., USS America transmitted on Chinese military frequencies. Plan vessels. This is U.S. Navy. We are monitoring your actions. We remind all parties that freedom of navigation applies to all vessels under international law. We will ensure this principle is respected. At 6:55 a.m., the Taiwanese convoy reached blockade line. 7 cargo ships approached Chinese destroyers at 12 knots, steady course. Chinese warships held position, crews watching, weapons trained but not firing. Formosa progress passed within 500 meters of destroyer Kunming, sailors on both vessels watching each other. One by one, 7 civilian ships sailed through China's blockade, not challenged, not boarded, not stopped. At 6:58 a.m., all 7 cleared Chinese formation, continuing toward Taiwan. But demonstration wasn't complete. At 7:02 a.m., 2 P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft arrived overhead from Okinawa, beginning systematic mapping of every Chinese vessel. At 7:06 a.m., USS America's strike group maneuvered between Chinese formation and Taiwan, establishing persistent presence. At 7:10 a.m., JS Otago and Ashigara began freedom of navigation transit through exact coordinates where China attempted blockade. At 7:15 a.m., Beijing issued orders. Disengage, return to patrol operations, all vessels RTB. Chinese warships began withdrawing, slowly maintaining formation, trying to preserve appearance of control. But reality was clear. 15 planned vessels retreating, 7 Taiwanese ships continuing safely, 12 F-35s maintaining overwatch, 1 submarine surfaced, 2 Japanese destroyers patrolling freely. Blockade systematically dismantled. By 7:21 a.m., operation was over. Chinese warships heading home. Taiwanese convoy in Taiwan-controlled waters. Allied forces remained on station. Captain Chen transmitted, convoy approaching destination. All ships intact, all crews safe. Mission accomplished. Strategic implications rippled immediately. Beijing issued statement. PLA Navy conducted routine patrol. Operations were normal activities. Statement avoided mentioning blockade or Allied response. But satellite photos told complete story. Taiwan's response was measured. Today demonstrates international law means something. Freedom of navigation is principle defended by committed nations. Taiwan is not alone. Japan statement. Japan will continue supporting lawful maritime activities in cooperation with allies sharing these values. U.S. 7th Fleet posted photographs. Connecticut surfaced. F-35Bs in formation. Otago sailing through strait. Caption, ensuring free and open Indo-Pacific. But deeper impact was strategic. For years, China perfected gray zone warfare, aggressive actions below armed conflict threshold. The convoy blockade was supposed to be ultimate gray zone operation, demonstrate control without fighting. Allied response proved gray zone tactics have counter, coordinated presence, overwhelming capability, same methodology, no shots fired. Definitive outcome, convoy passed, blockade failed, international law upheld. China learned critical lessons. American submarines are undetectable until surfacing. Connecticut tracked 15 vessels for 6 hours undetected. F-35s establish air superiority before conventional aircraft scramble. Japan responds actively with destroyers and demonstrated resolve. Allied coordination is real, rapid, overwhelming. Most importantly, blockading Taiwan triggers military response, not diplomatic statements. Today, those 7 ships continue regular runs to Taiwan. Captain Chen received Taiwan's highest civilian honor. USS America continues Pacific operations. Connecticut's location remains classified, but Chinese commanders know it's watching. Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force maintains regular freedom of navigation patrols. Every time Chinese strategists consider aggressive action, they remember March 15th. 6:34 a.m. 7 civilian ships, 15 Chinese warships, 1 blockade attempt. 47 minutes later, complete strategic failure. 0 shots fired, 0 casualties, 1 undeniable message. This is the Taiwan Strait. These are international waters. The convoy that fought back didn't need weapons. It had rights under international law, allies committed to defending those rights, and certainty that behind every civilian ship, Allied naval power is watching and ready to respond. Always.